This is my air-cooled mini moto quad bike. So what I'm going to do is give you a walk around tour of the entire thing. So I've got two quads, as you probably know. I've got a blue one and a green one. So this is obviously my green one. And this is a 39cc two-stroke air-cooled engine. So obviously no radiator. This is just a twist and go throttle on the top there. Yeah. So I'm going to walk around the entire quad and show you how everything is done, because this is not standard by any means. Now, first of all, when you buy these quads from the manufacturer, you can buy them all over the internet, yeah, all over the web. When you buy these have very low powered engines in them. Yeah, now I'm sure they're absolutely fine for kids, but if you want some serious fun as an adult, then you really do have to put a more powerful engine in them. Now the engine I've got, as you can see here, is a Blatter engine. Yeah, this is a Blatter two-stroke engine. Now this engine is Italian. Yeah, all the best engines are mostly Italian engines, as far as I know. All the ones I've used over the years to race, yeah, most of them are from Italy. And I've got an exhaust that runs underneath the engine. Yeah, now this engine's probably around 9 horsepower. I would say between 8 and 9 horsepower. The engines you get in these quads, if you buy them brand new from the manufacturer, they're mostly all going to be about 3 horsepower at the most, because I think most of them are actually built for kids. And that's all well and good, but as an adult, yeah, if we want some serious fun on these quads, we're going to have to put a decent engine in them. This is what I've done. So as you can see, I've put an exhaust which goes under the actual engine, underneath there, all the way back, and it kind of wraps round. Yeah, this is actually called a Blatter Elite. This is a Blatter Elite engine, and you can normally always tell if it's a Blatter engine like this, or especially like this one, because the exhaust wraps around like this. These have been around for many, many years. So what I did is, well, what you have to do is you have to create some additional brackets within the actual frame, because these engines fit differently to the one that came out. Yeah, so that's really the main thing you have to do, is you have to fit some additional brackets within the frame so that you can fit different engines. Now, if you just wanted to put a water-cooled engine in, yeah, you may have to do this differently. But this is a Blatter Elite engine, a Blatter engine. Yeah, you can see there, look, Blatter again. This is what this quad's got. You can see, look, there's got a couple of brackets just inside there, which holds the engine on. And I've got another bracket inside there, up there. So that's the first thing really, is that if you want to put a decent engine in these quads, you do have to make some adjustments and some changes to the actual chassis. Obviously, you'd need a welder. Yeah, you need to weld these brackets on. And it's not really a big job. It's quite simple, just as long as it fits well. And obviously you need to put the chain on when you put the engine in the quads, so it all lines up. And the best way to do that is when you fit everything, you come behind the quads and you just look up the chain. Yeah, so when you put the actual engine in place, as long as the chain on the rear sprocket, yeah, is all fairly well aligned with the engine as straight, then you're pretty much good to go. So that's the first thing. The engine is a lot different. I have already tested this quad on a track, and it was really fast, but I'm going to have to redo that video. So I'm going to upload some new videos over the next couple of months of this particular quad, because I wasn't very happy with the actual footage that came out. Yeah, because the actual day we went and did the test, we ran out of light and it was getting dark. So we had to just pretty much film what we had to do in the afternoon, because it was just before Christmas and I wanted to get a video out before Christmas, and that was just before lockdown. So anyway, I'm going to go out and take some more videos of the quad, hopefully when the weather's a bit nicer and a little bit more sunny, because in the last video it wasn't very good. it was a little bit dark and the camera angles were good, but I can definitely improve on that. And plus I'm going to try and do a top speed test on this to see how fast it actually goes in a straight line. I think I could get around 40 to 45 miles an hour, but we'll have to wait and see. So I've covered the engine. Yeah, the engine is obviously a pull start engine. There's no button or anything like that. I guess you can modify these if you really want to. If you really want to push start button, I guess you could do that, but that isn't something I've ever had on any of my engines anyway. None of these particular race engines, these two-stroke race engines, they're all just a pull start, but they are fairly easy. So moving around the back, we've got the wheels. These are the standard wheels that you get on these quads from the manufacturer. Yeah, so just about everything on this quad is standard. So if I bought this, if you went out today and you bought one of these quads from China or from wherever, Amazon, it would come almost the same as this, except the engine would be different. There isn't really anything else on the quad that I've changed apart from the engine. And even the wheels are all standard. So you can see the rear wheels are a little bit thicker than the front wheels. Yeah, that's obviously normal. That's how it works on go-karts and all that. So these are a little bit thicker, and all of the rear axle and all of this section is all completely standard. I've not customized any of this. These have got little adjustments there, which means you can change the sprocket depending on which go-kart track you go to. Yeah, you can adjust them, and what that does is it changes the that actually changes the tension of the chain. So if you put your chain on and it's a little bit too loose, you can adjust them, and it slides the axle round, and it either comes back or it goes forward depending on how you want to adjust it. So you do have a little bit of movement in there, which is a good thing, because one of the things that I found is if you buy a really cheap one, yeah, this particular quad is a Blatter quad. If you look on the top here, and this is a good indication, if you look down there, yeah, it says Blatter. And there's also some other ways you can identify if it's a decent quad or not. It's got Blatter there as well. And also the actual plastics that you get when you get these brand new. I mean, I don't know if you can actually buy these brand new anymore, these actual Blatter ones from Italy. You might be able to, I don't know. But when they come, they normally have the paintwork, yeah, is already done with stickers and everything. And you've normally got Blatter on the plastic as well. So there's lots of ways to identify if it is a decent, well-built quad, or if it's just a copy, if it's just like a Chinese copy. And this particular one is a Blatter. Yeah, I always tend to try and build these quads on a proper Blatter frame, because the same as anything, you get what you pay for. Yeah. So anyway, moving on. So yeah, this is an actual Blatter frame. So make sure if you do ever want to put in a race engine, I would recommend that you use a Blatter frame, because being Italian, yeah, and just being more expensive, they are going to be a little bit more, they are going to be more well built, in my opinion. Okay, if it's Italian, obviously, if you pay a bit more money for it as well. But it is up to you. By all means, if you just want to test a few things and you just want to try some things out, go out and buy a cheap Chinese copy quad chassis. Yeah, basically, if it doesn't have Blatter on it, it's going to be some type of a copy or a different make. Yeah, it might not be a copy, but it's certainly not going to be a Blatter if it doesn't have the Blatter stamps on the foot areas there. And if you don't have Blatter on the wheels, I believe the front wheels have got the word Blatter on them as well. So you can easily see I think in there somewhere it has bladder, I believe. No, not on this one, it doesn't. These wheels may have actually been changed. I know on my other quad, if we go over to my other quad, which I'm going to cover in another video, you can see here, look, it's got the word bladder there. Yeah. So these may have the word bladder on them. Anyway, that doesn't make too much difference. We'll cover my water cooled in the next video. So anyway, yeah, where was I? Talking about the actual chassis. So try to get a chassis which is a decent one, yeah, a well-built chassis. I've purchased one, and it just so happened to be bladder. Yeah, I mean, I purchased this a good few years ago now. As I said, I put my bladder air-cooled engine in it, and I've made a few other customizations as well, which I will go over. I've obviously painted the plastics because the plastics I had before on it were just looking a bit tired. So all I did was rub them down, give them a quick paint job. And as you can see, it isn't a showroom standard, but what you have to remember is if you plan on using your quad on track or maybe even off-road, but I would highly recommend only using these on a track, on a flat surface, because there's no suspension on these. You're going to more than likely get lots of oil, grease, and your plastics are just going to get trashed after using your quad on a track. So don't worry too much about the paintwork, in my opinion, but it is entirely up to you. If you want to obviously go the distance and make it look really shiny, that's absolutely fine. I intend to use my quads to chuck around go-kart tracks and go fast, as fast as I can. And you are more than likely going to have a few scrapes and grazes now and again on your quad. So that's why I'm not going to spend too long on the plastic. So moving on. So if we come back round the back. So as I said, a good chunky rear axle. On some of the cheaper mini quads that you used to be able to buy, what used to happen was they came with skinnier axles at the back, and they used to snap quite easily. And this is why these Italian quads were quite popular, because they always came with these big chunky rear axles. And I know that some people used to go out and buy replacement rear axles, but buy the actual Italian ones, because they're a lot stronger. So just bear that in mind if you do have a different style quad to this one, and it isn't an Italian make, and it isn't an expensive quad, then just bear in mind, just in case you don't have a strong rear axle. Okay, make sure it's nice and thick like this one, because once you put these race engines in these quads, they are going to go a lot faster. So obviously you need to make sure that you've got plenty of strength there at the back. Now the brakes, you only actually get one brake on these. So even if you was to buy a brand new one, you would still only get one brake. It's on the left hand side, and that goes round to the back. And that's all you have. Now you might be wondering if it's going to be safe enough having just one brake, and yes, it is. It's absolutely fine. I've never had any issues. Obviously, you don't have any backup brakes, so if your back brake fails, then you don't have any brakes. But it is what it is. This is something that you're going to have to decide yourself. It's perfectly safe. I've never had any problems with mine. Yeah. In fact, I don't often really use the brake that much anyway. I only use it to just feather when I come into corners sometimes. Some corners I sort of use it a bit harder. But one brake at the back, as long as you've got decent brake pads and everything is working correctly, you'll be absolutely fine. The tyres. Now this is a little bit of a complex topic, because the tyres you get on these, right, these ones here are called Kenda. Now, I believe these are pretty good tyres. I've never actually used Kenda tyres before on anything else that I've raced or used over the years, but I've been told that Kenda are pretty good. Yeah, made in Taiwan, yeah. I've never used Kenda, but apparently they are pretty good. However, what I am trying to do at the moment is I'm trying to find out where I can buy race tires from. Now, these may be okay to use, but as you can see, they do have a little bit of wear. Now, these have probably been on for years, which they have. They have been on for years. And even before I bought this quad, this was being used for quite a few years before that. So these have had a lot of usage over the years. So I would like to get a brand new set of tires for both of my quads. So I'm going to have to find out where I can buy some decent tires from. What you do have to bear in mind as well is that when you buy these standard from the factory, you're probably only going to be, I would say about 20 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour at the very, very most. Yeah, that's probably being quite fair, saying 20 miles an hour. But this does double the speeds, yeah, and it will do a lot more if I change the sprocket at the back. So you do need to make sure that you've got pretty decent tires on the quads. The bearings are really good, as you can see. Yeah, they spin really well. But that is something you're going to have to think about if you ever plan on building one of these, because the tires that I've got on here are absolutely fine. Yeah, I'm going up to about 40 miles an hour, and in all honesty, I think these are absolutely fine for 40 miles an hour. However, I would just like to get a new set of tires. And not only that, but I actually want to find out where I can get some from anyway, because it'll be good to have a few spares in my garage. So moving on, what I'm going to quickly cover is what we got here. So we've got mud guards. Yeah, you can get replacement mud guards off eBay. They're really simple. Yeah, another mud guard there. The actual sprocket that I've got on here comes off with 3 bolts. There's just 3 bolts in there. And you have to take the wheel off. In order to change the sprocket, you actually have to take the wheel off in there, take the 3 nuts off, undo the main bolt in the middle. You have to knock the wheel off, undo those 2 bolts, and then undo the sprocket, and the sprocket will come off. And that is how you change it. The reason why you'll need to change the sprocket is because depending on what type of area you take your quad to will depend on what sprocket you want to use. For instance, if you go to a big open area where you can really, get some serious speed out of your quads, you're going to want to gear this for top end speed. Yeah. If you've got a small area, maybe like a very tight and twisty circuit that you take it to, you're going to want to gear it more for corners and acceleration. And the way you work this out is these rear sprockets go from anywhere from about a 54 up to about an 80, okay? And the small sprockets there, they go from a 6 to generally to an 8, so 6, 7 or 8. They do come in a 5, they do come in a 9, I believe, but they're very, very rare. You rarely ever use any of those. I've only used a 6, 7 and 8 over the years. So what I would say is, depending on what engine, now this is difficult for me to tell you what gear to run because it depends on the torque and the power of your engine. I can tell you what I'm running on this, and this will give you a little bit of a ballpark figure, a little bit of an idea on where to start if you built one of these quads. I've currently got a 7-tooth pinion on the front there, and on the rear, I believe I've got a 64. So I'm running, no I'm not, 61. There you go, look, if you look right in there, yeah, 61 tooth sprocket. Now, so that's a 761. Now, a 61 rear sprocket is very, very small. It's something that I don't normally run, and I haven't ran 61 sprockets at the back on my bike or anything over the years many times before. So a 761 is geared for top end speeds. But you have to remember, with these quads, the power is put down differently than to a bike. Yeah, so I've got my bike. there. So obviously if I gear my bike the same as my quad, there's going to be a lot of difference in power and how it puts the power down, because obviously I've got 4 wheels and I've only got 2 on my bike, plus that's a different engine anyway. So this is why I say it's very, very difficult for me to tell you what gearing to run out of the gate. This is an air-cooled engine, and a 761 seems to work very well on the track that I took it to. So if you go back to one of my videos on my YouTube channel, you'll see when I tested this, and on the main straights it just hit top end speed. In fact, I could probably go down to a 62 or a 63, and that probably might be a little bit more suitable than a 61. But hey, I'm not going to touch it at the moment. It did run really well with a 61, so I'm just going to leave it. So I've got a 761. You can start with something similar to what I've got, and then you can go from there. But remember what I said, it all depends on what engine you have, because different engines produce different horsepower and different torque. And especially when you're using these quads, you can't ever compare quad gearing to mini bike gearing, because it's going to be completely different. So moving on, you've obviously got the fuel tank there. Yeah, that is actually locked down from the seat. The seat goes on top of that. So when you put your tank in, that gets bolted in like that. And then you put your fairing on top, and that holds everything down, so it's all nice and tight. So nice and safe, nice and tight and everything. What we're going to do around here, so just a few more things to cover. Go down to the front of the quad now. So you've got, this is kind of like a bull bar thing at the front of the quad. So this is my steering column at the front. Yeah. Now what I have done on my other quads, which I will show you in a different video, is I've installed a steering damper across there. And all that does is that stops any, well, that just gives me more stability when I'm going down the straights. So it doesn't give me, there's not quite so much speed wobble, and it doesn't shake quite so much. You will see in my other video that I make, there will be a steering damper that goes across there onto the steering column, and it reduces the speed wobble, and it doesn't shake quite so much when I'm going down the straights. And that's really important, because the faster you go, the more it will shake and the more speed wobble you will get down the straights. And obviously you don't want to have any problems going down the straights, because that's when you're going the fastest. One of the things I will just cover as well, just to finish off the video, is the handlebars. So you can see here, look, I've got a quick action throttle. Yeah, these are the quick action throttles that I use on my bikes. So don't think that these are any different to the ones I normally use. You can see here, look, on there, it's no different. Yeah, nice and springy. This one's not quite so springy as my bike. That's a little, you know, it's not too bad. The reason is because the carburetor is different on this one. The carburetor doesn't have such a strong spring in this particular system, how this is set up. That's why it doesn't spring back quite so aggressively. But that doesn't make too much difference. Yeah, that still works absolutely fine. So I've got my quick action throttle there, my brake, and then one last thing I'm going to cover, and this is really important. This is really, really important. If you ever plan on building one of these quads, one of the things I highly recommend that you do is you fit a temperature sensor. Very, very important, especially if you have an air-cooled engine. So if your engine is air-cooled, then it's going to be prone to overheating a lot more than the water-cooled engines are, especially these two-strokes, because they rev very, very high. It's important that you keep an eye on your temperature on your engine. So all you do is you can buy these. In fact, I've just recently bought 2 of these. I've got one on each. I've got one on my bike, I've got one on here, and I've got one on my other quads under there, which I'll show you in the next video. And I had to go out and buy 2 more brand new ones. I already had one on my bike, but I needed one for both quads. Now, they're not cheap. I think I paid for 2 of these, including the actual lead that goes onto the spark plug. I think I paid around £90 for 2, 80 to £90. So they're about 40 odd pound each. And that works out probably around about $120. I had to order these from America, from the US. So any of you guys watching this and you're from the US, then you're quite lucky. You can order these quite easily. These are Trail Tech temperature sensors, yeah. And all you do in order to set these up, they come with obviously that wire there, and they come with a plug. You plug them in like that, and then you run it all the way around. It just runs around like that. I've literally just cable tied it to my chassis, and then it goes under my plug. You see there, look, just there. So all it does, it screws on to my spark plug, and then you put your spark plug back in your engine. Put your cap back on, yeah. Put your coil back on the plug, and you're ready to rock and roll. What I have done to make it a little bit easier is I've got one of these sticky pads. Yeah. Now I believe these are sticky pads that you can use for wiring. Yeah, these are electrical sticky pads that you can run wires and stuff through when you're working on electrics. I had loads of these spare, so what I did is put one on the frame, put the wires through, and then just put the cable tie through the holes, and then did it up tight, and that seems to work really well. And then all what happens now, yeah, so this is nice and safe, it's out of the way. All what happens now is when I go, and every time I use the quad, it will give me my actual temperature for the engine. That little button there, you can push that, and it will give you a maximum temperature which your engine got up to on the last run, or you can push it again and it will give you the current temperature. Yeah, I always leave it on the current temperature. So if I'm going around the circuit and it goes up to a certain temperature, I know that I need to come back in and I need to change the jet on my carburetor, because otherwise you may seize your engine if it gets too hot. The next question, or you may have, you may want to know, well, what is too hot? Well, again, it's very difficult because each engine is slightly different. However, a ballpark figure for these Black Elite engines, being a 2-stroke, air-cooled, and they do run very, very, how can I put it? They do run very hot. They get very hot when you use them, but as long as you don't go over about 190 Celsius, you should be okay. The last time I went out on this, it got up to 181. Yeah, and that's pretty safe. Some people may disagree and say, well, you can run these up to like 220, 250, and some people may even say, yeah, mine was running at 270, and that's all well and good. But to be safe, I don't want to run any risks of seizing this engine. So I always make sure that I don't go above about 180, 190. If I see that the temperature is creeping up over 190 and towards the 200 mark, it may be time to change your jet size in your carburetor. This is how I've got mine on my quad. This is how this is all set up for me. And I recommend you do something similar, because this is really important. If you don't have your temperature sensor, when you take your quad out to use it, you're not going to know where you are. So you could be using it, having some fun, and then the next thing you know, your engine seized because you don't know what temperature you have on the engine. And in order to actually stick it on your quad, I had to cut a little steel piece of metal like that, piece of steel, and then I used 2 existing holes which goes through to clamp the actual handlebars down to the steering column. Yeah, so I took those 2 out, put the piece of steel over, I marked the holes, drilled them out, and then put the bolts back. So it's nice and safe. So that's exactly the same as it was before, except I've got this steel plate, and then I basically give it a clean with a Dremel. I Dremeled over it, give it a little bit of a clean, took any dust off it, and then I used some double-sided tape, stuck this on the plate, and now that's on there nice and solid. That's not going to go anywhere. And that's what I've done with mine. Now these handlebars are completely standard. You will see when I show you my other quads, my water-cooled, I've got different handlebars. Yeah, they are modified handlebars. These are completely standard. These are the ones you get from the manufacturer if you was to buy one of these brand new. As I said, the only thing different on this quad is the engine is a proper race engine. This is a proper 2-stroke race engine, which people did used to use these many years ago to actually race. And I think some people still do, but they're not quite as popular as they once were. Because as you probably know, engines come and go. More powerful engines come out, and you know, engines get pushed to the back that are just not up to it, that are just not as fast as all of the newer ones that come out. But you know, this is still a fast engine. It really is. This does not hang about at all. This is really, really reliable, and it's definitely fast enough to have some good fun on it. So that is pretty much the entire overview of my air-cooled quads. I've been wanting to do this for a while because a lot of the videos I've made, I've gone over the quad quite quickly, and I've not really explained exactly how everything is done and actually set up. So I hope this has given you a little bit more information on what you would need to do to actually build one of these air-cooled quads like I've done. Last thing I will say is you don't have to have the same engine as me. If you want to put a different engine in, even a 4-stroke engine with gears, by all means do it. But you have to think about space, and this is why I've put 2-stroke engines in these quads, because 2-stroke engines came out, and 2-stroke engines generally are going to be quite small. You will have to always have an underneath exhaust pipe, because you can't go over the top. That's just not going to happen. And you can't come out to the side because you'll burn your legs. So you have to go underneath. So always remember that, yeah? And that is my air-cooled quad. I'm really, really proud of my little beast, because this was the first one that I built and the first one that I properly tested on a circuit. And you know what? It was really, really good fun. And I can't honestly see me getting rid of these for a long, long time, because they're so much fun. When you go to track days and just throw them around the circuit, they're really, really good fun. So I hope you enjoyed it. Any questions, just leave them underneath, and I'll try and answer them the best I can. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you're not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, to Funky Projects, make sure you are subscribed, just so I can send you some more videos, so that if I do upload any more videos, you get notified as soon as I upload them. One last thing I will say is look out for one of my next videos where I'm going to be giving you an overview of my water-cooled quads, yeah, which is this one. Yeah, I won't show you too much at the moment, but this is the beast, aka the beast. The green one's an awesome little quad, it really is. And it's a case of if someone ever wants to go on any of my quads, they can have a go on the green one. If they want some serious fun and serious speeds, I'll let them go on this. Because this thing is lethal. Okay, so I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in another video. Take care.